Hey readers, as promised, the last 3 chapters of Planet Omar. Here we go. Don't mind me, I'm in my pajamas, it's pajama day. Chapter 20. It was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. It was terrifying and hairy and it stank. Oh, just a reminder, remember the last thing we read at the end of chapter 19, something had just grabbed Omar's shoulder and it was really scary. Okay, it was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. It was terrifying and hairy and it stank. It stank so bad. It was kind of like a man because it had a head and a body and arms and legs, but it wasn't a man. And it was dirty, so dirty. My brain told me it was a zombie. Daniel screamed too. We both ran down a long road. I looked over my shoulder. The zombie was still coming with his arms out, trying to grab us. I ran harder. When I couldn't see him anymore, I stopped and tried to catch my breath. Daniel, on the other hand, threw himself onto the sidewalk and started wailing like never before. I wasn't well trained in dealing with crying bullies or zombies. I took a deep breath and I imagined H2O flying down to help us, swooping around to keep an eye out in case the zombie turned up again. Then I sat down next to Daniel on the sidewalk, even though there were loads of gross, dried up chewing gum on it. I told him it was going to be okay. When I said that, I felt like a liar because I was scared too, and I didn't really know if it was going to be okay. But that's what grown-ups always say when someone is crying. So I said it. Grown-ups, what would they do right now? Daniel, what would your parents do if they were lost? Daniel wiped some of the snot from his nose with the back of his hand. They would look for their way on their phones. Right, we don't have phones. What would yours do? If they were in trouble and they were going to die like us, Daniel asked. I had to try very hard not to laugh at how dramatic Daniel was being. He actually thought this was the end of the world. Well, the zombie thing was quite scary, but H2O didn't have to hold back, so I imagined him rolling on the floor laughing instead. Well, anytime there's a big problem, my parents always ask Allah. That's one thing they keep telling me a lot, to ask Allah for everything we need. They say it every day. Daniel sat up. There was something suddenly different about his face. I think it was hope. And did you? He asked. Actually, no, I forgot, I said sheepishly. Ask him, shouted Daniel. And for a moment, I thought he was going to become the bully Daniel again. But he just sat there, waiting with big, hopeful eyes. I closed my eyes and whispered a few words in English. I didn't know the exact Arabic prayer for being lost with a bully and being chased by a zombie, but my dad said that Allah knows all the languages in the universe, so we can talk to him however we need to. Allah, I'm sorry I forgot to ask you before, but we're kind of lost and we need your help. We lost all our teachers and we don't know where they are. We don't even know where we are actually. And also, there might be a zombie trying to catch us. I'm trying to look after Daniel, but he keeps crying a lot. Please, can you help us? I don't know how, but I guess you know. Thank you. I love you. I opened my eyes to find Daniel's face right next to mine. Well, did you ask him? Is he going to help us? Of course he will. Allah always helps. But do you think he heard you? You were whispering so quietly I couldn't even hear you. And I'm right next to you. Yeah, of course he did. He's God, I said in my well, duh voice. But then I realized I should be kinder and explain everything. God can hear everything, even whispers, and what you're saying to yourself in your own head. Oh, okay, said Daniel. Then, because Daniel still looked so frightened and sad, I said, don't worry, you'll get back home to your mom and dad, and so will I. Yeah. If they even notice I'm gone, or if they even care, said Daniel. Of course they care. That's what parents do. Anyway, you're a bit hard to miss. I mean, if you weren't there, I would notice. Really? Super definitely. Daniel seemed pleased to hear that for like 0.8 seconds. Then his shoulders drooped again. Yeah, but my parents... all they care about is my little sister, Susie, because she's always in the hospital. Is she going to be okay? I don't know. She's always sick and having operations. He started wailing again, as if something was hurting a whole lot. And I do care about her. I do, but what about me? I might as well just not be there. I just get in the way, and they always need to look after her. Poor Daniel. I felt a little lump in my throat, and I stared at him because I didn't know what to say. So I just moved closer to him, even though he stank of pee, and I said, I don't know what I would do if that happened to me. Daniel looked at me, as if I had said something that really, really helped, but I had just said the truth because I didn't know what else to say. He sniffed really hard and wiped his eyes before looking up at me, and he was waiting for me to say something more. So I said, yeah, you must be a really strong person. I mean, strong inside, not strong like Batman, although I think Batman is strong inside as well. Daniel smiled a snotty smile. Is this the first time he's ever smiled at me? I thought. That felt really weird. Didn't he hate me? So, what now? Do we just sit here? Asked Daniel. I don't think so. The zombie might find us. What? What then? Let's walk. Okay. Whoa, we've just found out a ton about Daniel's home life and his backstory, and I'm wondering if that gives us any new ideas so we can start inferring why Daniel maybe acts the way he does act. Let's keep reading. Chapter 21. So we got up and carried on walking the same way we'd been going before. Daniel was calmer now. I was kind of proud of him and of myself, even though he did smell because of the pee in his pants. After we'd walked a few minutes, I knew why this place was so familiar. Yes! I took Daniel's hand and started running. And there it was, the huge dome of the London Central Mosque. I love this mosque. This was the one where I had my first halal sweets. This was where a man had given me money just for being cute. This was where I had stood many times, sometimes with my mom and sometimes with my dad and with hundreds of other people, all praying at the same time. This place was safe. We ran and ran till we reached the big space outside the mosque where I had tried to ride my scooter once. I looked over my shoulder and the zombie was on our heels again. How did he do that? We pumped up the screaming even more and ran right into the mosque. Mosques are usually quiet places, so all the commotion made people come from all around and came up to us. There was a man who was wearing one of those Arab-style long things that go right down to his feet. I had one in white. My grandma bought the thobe for me in Mecca. The man had lots of wrinkles and lots of white hair, and he was using his hands to signal us to calm down. He was also saying something, but I couldn't hear him because we were still screaming. So I stopped. Then Daniel stopped. Then I told him everything. It was weird. I felt like I could hear my own voice from far away, and it sounded really hysterical. I told him how we had gotten lost and tried to find our own way to the science museum, and then we'd gotten chased by a zombie. Then I realized it all sounded super crazy. So I quickly told him that we asked Allah for help, and we ended up here. The man smiled, like he was very proud of us, and like he knew all the secrets in the world. And where is this zombie, my child? He asked. Before I could look around to see where he was, Daniel started pointing and squealing. There! He's there! The man gently took my shoulders and made me look again. My dear son, he said. I wasn't his son, but sometimes people in the mosque who don't know you still love you like you're their son. That is no zombie. That is a homeless man, and it looks as if he was trying to help you. I felt like a complete sillyhead because it was a homeless man, and he wasn't chasing us. He had just noticed that we were kids all by ourselves, and he actually cared enough to try to help, but we had run away from him. I felt pretty bad. I waved at the homeless man sheepishly, and he waved back and gave me a yellow-toothed grin. Somebody had sat him down with a cup of tea. Then the man in the thobe, whose name was Muhammad, sat us down and called our school. A younger man in jeans and t-shirt that said boom came over and gave us some juice and halal sweets. This made Daniel's day, and it made mine too. I felt pretty good at this point. I felt like the hero I was trying to be. The school had been frantic and had already called the police. Apparently, everyone had been worrying nonstop, especially poor Charlie, and both Daniel's parents and mine had been told. A policeman and a policewoman showed up about 10 minutes later to talk to us. We also got to talk to Eddie, the homeless, not-so-zombie man. He was very smiley, even though he doesn't own many clothes or have a house to live in. I would have been able to catch up with you if it wasn't for my bad knee, he laughed. As soon as he spoke, I liked him because he had an accent from up north and it sounded just like Reza's. We told him we were sorry for running away from him and offered him some of our sweets. He liked the red ones best, just like everyone else I know. Next, our parents turned up. First mine, then Daniel's. Mom held on to me and cried and cried. My dad held on to her. Everyone decided that it was best if we didn't go to the Wonder Lab, as we had had enough adventure for one day. Daniel and I didn't mind. I wondered if he just wanted to stay near his mom, like I did. Then Dad said, "Come on, Trouble, let's get you home." And he heaved me onto his shoulders just to make me laugh. Chapter 22. When everything had settled down that evening, Charlie's mom rang my mom and asked if she could bring Charlie over to see me because he was a panicky mess and he wanted to make sure I was okay with his own eyes. So Charlie came over and we ate cookies with chocolate milk. And I told him about the zombie thing and about Daniel peeing himself. Then, after we finished almost peeing ourselves with laughter, I sat up straight and told Charlie that I felt bad for laughing because Daniel wasn't too bad at all, now that I've gotten to know him a bit. "Okay," said Charlie, but he didn't seem too sure. So I said, "You'll see, Scout's honor." And I saluted him. I wasn't a scout, and Charlie just burst out laughing again, but I think he believed me. A couple of days later, my parents invited Daniel and his family to our house for iftar. They all wanted to discuss every detail of that crazy day of being lost on the underground, but Mr. and Mrs. Green seemed nice. I remembered what Daniel had said about feeling like he was just in the way at home, but they were paying lots of attention to him now. His dad kept ruffling his hair, and his mom kept touching his shoulder like she wanted to check he was still there. I had a feeling that was why they'd left his sister Susie with her aunt for a visit, so Daniel could be their star. They told Mom and Dad that they were very grateful for the mosque and for helping us. Then Daniel told my parents all about how I asked Allah for help, and it was only after that we were saved, so it must have been Allah that did it. Of course, I had already told them my version of the story, but they were extra proud to hear it from him. Daniel's parents wanted to go to the mosque to thank them again personally, so we had the idea that they should come with us on Eid Day and do it then. Everything was looking really good. I could hardly believe that in just a few days, Daniel had gone from being the person I liked least of all to being my friend. He was trying to be Charlie's friend too, which was a bit harder because they are so different from each other. But I had been an accidental magnet again and pulled them together, and I was completely sure that they'd get along. Charlie and I had even asked Daniel to play soccer with us on the playground because we realized that nobody had even asked him before. It turned out that he was better than anyone in the whole class at being goalie. But there was still one thing that was bothering me, so I just blurted it out. "Will our family be kicked out of the country?" The air in the room suddenly got very thick, like we were on a different planet with less oxygen. Everyone looked awkward. And since Miriam always giggles in awkward situations, she put her hand over her mouth, but I could still see her shoulders shaking, and so could Issa because he pointed at her with a very cheeky grin. "Where did you get an idea like that?" Dad said. I suddenly realized that I had gotten it from Daniel, but Daniel would be in trouble if I said anything. I looked at him really quickly and looked away. And then I said, I heard it somewhere, and I even asked Reza, and he said that we will have to go live in Pakistan. Tad laughed, but Mom nudged him because she could see that I was serious. Then she smiled politely at the Greens, who looked really uncomfortable. Daniel was color matching his skin with the tomatoes on the plate. I wondered if he could feel it when he went red. Dad explained that that was never going to happen, and kids make things up all the time. He said that I should always talk to an adult to get the facts right when I hear something like that. Then Daniel blurted out, "Okay, it was me, and I'm sorry, Omar." Everyone's heads turned to Daniel really fast. Daniel's head flung toward the floor. "Well, I heard my cousin Brian say it, so I just said it to Omar to make him feel bad because I didn't think he'd want to be my friend, but I'm sorry now anyway." Mrs. Green's face was doing the color matching thing with the tomatoes now. And Mr. Green was saying, "Oh, Daniel," and he was burying his face in his hands. And then Mrs. Green was saying, "I'm so, so sorry." And Daniel was saying, "I'm so, so sorry." And Dad was saying, "Hey, it's okay. Kids will be kids." And Mom was looking from one person's face to another's. And then suddenly they all went quiet. They all went quiet and they looked at me. "Omar, I am very proud that you are Daniel's friend, and I wouldn't want you going anywhere," Mr. Green said. Phew, I thought. Now everything is okay. I imagined H2O peeking in through the window. He was tiny now because I didn't need a huge dragon to make me feel better anymore. He winked at me and waved with his tail before flying back into his cloud. Chapter 23. A couple pages. It was one of the best days of the year, Eid, and we were all going to spend it with Mrs. Rogers and the Greens. The night before, I had stood at my window trying to spot the moon, really, really hoping it would be Eid. The moon tells us when Ramadan is over because it's a new month in the Islamic calendar. If the new moon can't be seen, it's basically not Eid for another day. When that happens, it is so annoying. The mosque is always very busy on Eid day. Even people who normally don't go to the mosque to pray go on Eid day, so it is absolutely packed. We sat on the carpet waiting for the prayers to start and watching the people pour in. I like how every single person is different shapes and different sizes, even for adults. Like fully grown adults can be really tall or quite short, and you can get really tall and thin ones, who remind me of the BFG, and short, large ones, and all sizes in between. Then all the different faces, different types of faces, and different shades of colors. The mosque is really great because you get all types of people all in one place, and you're usually sitting still for a while, so it's the perfect place to people watch. One thing I figured out is that some of the people have really kind faces that seem quite perfect. They have a straight nose and maybe good skin and nice lips, but they still don't look nice. Like, I wouldn't want to be stuck in an elevator with them, and they definitely don't smile a lot. Then there are the other faces that might have skin that's a bit bad, and their nose isn't the prettiest, or their beards grow in funny directions, but they look really nice, and they smile loads. I've thought about it a lot, and I think it's all to do with what's inside people. If they're always having nice thoughts and are good and kind people, they always look lovely no matter what. And if they're awful people with rotten thoughts, they'll look horrible. Daniel had been smiling a lot more since we got lost together, and his face was definitely much nicer. While the imam led the prayers, the Greens watched from the back. Afterward, they said it was absolutely beautiful, like nothing they'd ever seen before. Next, we were all going to our home for an Eid feast and presents. That's the best part of Eid. We had presents for Daniel and his family too. Even Susie, who had joined us this time. Daniel rode with me in the Peanut, and on the way, he pulled out a little gift wrapped from his jacket pocket and grinned at me. It's another Eid present, but for Charlie. It's a Batman key ring. Do you think he'll like it? Super definitely, I grinned back. The feast covered every single centimeter of our dining table, which we call the Eid table on Eid. We always put piles and piles of things on the Eid table because we have lots of friends and family to visit. This year there was biryani, samosas, roasted leg of lamb, pakoras, chickpea yogurt. But what my mouth wanted most of all were the sweet desserts, like the delicious Pakistani thing my mom makes with thin noodles and milk called savayan, and Miriam's special chocolate brownies. Miriam might be super annoying most of the time, but she's getting really good at baking brownies. I sneaked one for myself and one for Daniel before Issa licked them all like he always does. Quick, eat it before anyone else comes in. I laughed out loud. Daniel gobbled his so fast that his face got bits of brownie all over it. What? Mumbled Daniel, still with his mouth full. Your teeth are so brown, I snorted. Daniel started laughing too. So are yours. The end. What a good feeling. What a good character change that we noticed. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of writing in my notebook. I'm not going to put it in the video because I do want this to end. It's been a long time that you've been sitting and watching this. But I'll tell you what I'm going to write. I noticed so much change in all of these characters. They started out feeling unsure of themselves. Omar began the story feeling really nervous about starting at a new school. And he had that imaginary dragon that was big and it protected him. But throughout the story, the dragon got smaller and smaller. And by the end of the story, he didn't need H2O anymore. He didn't need that protection because he found it inside himself. And he also noticed that when he looked around and he noticed the people that were happy and kind and good and having good thoughts, he said, those are the nicest looking people. And that's how you know who you're going to listen to. So that's the end. Planet Omar, Accidental Trouble Magnet. There is a second book, but I don't have it yet. So maybe we'll talk about getting it and reading it next. Okay? I'll talk to you soon. Bye.